Now we review Universal Basic Guys Episode 11, Sheet Shock. Ladies and gentlemen, I am now fully aware of the fact that somebody at Fox Studios has dropped acid. I have seen the 11th episode of the first season. There is a second season. It was picked up for a second season. Congratulations, Adam. I have seen the 11th episode of the first season of Universal Basic Guys. And finally, I have to admit, I enjoyed it. Because it was balls to the wall insanity. Anyway, Universal Basic Guys is the story of Mark the Thumbhead and Hank there to eat up screen time. And they are people who used to work at a hot dog factory. This hot dog factory has now been taken over by robots, more of a Skynet style than just automation, and they are part of a pilot program where they receive universal basic income. All right, so that's your premise. And then you have Thumbhead here, of course, being as he is the typical American loser, thinks everything of himself, and gets dick hurt if he can't do something, runs across a Navy recruiter and decides that he should be a Navy SEAL. So he, of course, brings his brother there to eat up screen time into the fold, and they join SEAL training. Before I get any further, let me remind you that for every 1,000 subscribers I get, I do purchase one of these bracelets from 4Ocean. 4Ocean pulls a pound of trash out of the ocean every time I do that. If you would be so kind as to comment, like, and subscribe, you'd be doing your part for a better world. Now, as one would expect, there is a B plot. That is the plot of David in touch with his feminine side man, voiced by Fred Armistead, is of course a struggling writer. And he decides to help the recruiting sergeant, who apparently is also a Navy SEAL, pen his book, which would of course be classified. But let's be honest, this episode is so balls to the wall. This is what we call a toy box script, okay? And what do we mean by a toy box script? Well, when you were a kid, and, maybe you weren't the richest kid in the world, and you had a toy box of all these weird toys, like, you had your of course you had your G.I. Joes, or maybe your knockoff this is an 80s thing, your knockoff G.I. Joes, and you had your little army men that were like half the size of your G.I. Joes. So you had the G.I. Joes become a special unit that raided the army base, and then maybe they were helped out by Star Wars stormtroopers because you were using everything in the toy box. That is what this script is. It's everything in the toy box. It's callbacks to the 80s. And shame on you for not breeding the Jersey Devil back into this, because that would have been an awesome callback. Another point I have to make is that when we look at the episode Fight or Flight, Thumbhead was like, oh yeah, I've done, World War II bombing missions. He would have brought this up. Okay, he would have brought up his flight simulator stuff and said that he was a crack pilot at some point, because that's Thumbhead. He brags. He would always be bragging about things. There's no continuity in these episodes. Whatever happened the last episode doesn't carry over. Yeah, that's a failing on the writing part, but I can forgive it for this point, because guess what? This is so crazy, I can't even be mad. It's like, yes, okay, part of the premise is this is a joke. It's a 45-year-old fat dude who makes me look thin, even though for some reason he only weighs 200 pounds, and I probably could eat him. He wouldn't roast up that nicely, though. I mean, you'd have to cook him for hours. But that's not the point. The joke being some guy like him being in the military. And I mean, every cartoon does this. The Simpsons, I think, did it at least twice, and I haven't seen an episode of them in, 20 years. It's just, this is as cliche an episode as you're going to get in terms of cartoons. The only thing more cliche might be like an Alice in Wonderland episode or a Wizard of Oz episode or the Thumbhead didn't really get his high school diploma episode, which would probably be a thing next season. Anyway, so of course, the reason it's called Sheet Shock is it starts out with Thumbhead not making the bed for his wife. And, oh, look what comes up in his basic training, or not so basic training, making the bed. It's a major plot point. I don't want to give it away. But just, there is a point in this movie where wannabe Rambo shows up, where it just takes this turn for the 80s extreme weird, and I loved every minute of it past that point. Up to that point, I was like, oh God, what am I watching? And even my computer kept cutting out saying, you're not watching this, Richard. You're not watching this. You're not doing this to yourself again. And then that happened, and I was like, no, I'm into this now. I really am. Evil Papa Smurf. So, look, Universal Basic Guys is a very infuriating show. There are always very large and strange things happening, but the otherworldly elements are somewhat rare. The other episode I've already referenced is the one with the Jersey Devil in it. That would be my second favorite episode, second to this. And I would actually have to say, I actually really enjoyed this. And I looked up the ratings before I made this. It is getting a modial rating of 1 star, all right? With an average of something like, 5.7. So yes, people are really hating on this. And it's like, it's probably because they're hating on the show, which is getting a lot of hate. But yeah, man, I did look it up. It is renewed for another season. And I actually gave Fred Armisen, the guy that plays David, a birthday shout out, and he didn't answer me. Fred, come on, man. Help a brother out. I mean, at least thank me for giving you a happy birthday. Anyway. And one of the things about this episode is that the most realistic part is its portrayal of the life of a writer. Because any relationship you have as a writer can be so fragile. And this guy is like, yes, I've got this Navy SEAL, he's going to give me his life story, and it's like, oh, I don't frickin' believe you. Hey, you know what? You know what the difference between reality and fiction is? Fiction has to make sense. So yes, that's a thing. I mean, this is a very writer-centered episode. To be flatly honest with you, it calls back to just being an artist, being somebody who performs. Like, I auditioned for The Whale. You know that? I auditioned for The Whale, and my part got stolen by Brendan Fraser. Just like, my World's Sexiest Man award keeps getting stolen by Idris Elba. I mean, hey, is an artistic type of person, a lot of things get stolen from you. It's just, that's how life feels. So him being a writer, this is expressed. And I mean, yeah, if there's one thing Hollywood has never respected, it's the writer. Because you look at the movies that are coming out nowadays, it's just this absolute garbage. And it's like, yes, obviously you're not respecting the writer, you're not respecting the process, you're not respecting how writing works. And I mean, that was something I felt even in college. I remember I had a writing class, and, it was theater writing, and they were going to put my plays on stage. But every time I brought in a script, the teacher was like, no, write something completely different. And when I left that class and wouldn't take another one, she literally came chasing after me because she wanted me to write what she wanted, and she thought I could do it. The life of a writer is hard. It can be lonely. And this particular writer, David, is a douche. One of the things about writing is you have to have balls. It's not something you have to be able to take criticism. You have to be able to stand there and have someone tell you how much they hate your work and be like, okay, what can I get out of this? Anyway, so yes, this episode is just batshit crazy. It belongs high in, if you're going to watch one episode of Universal Basic Guys, this is the one. Because it's absolutely insane. Now, it is going to be something that primarily appeals to Generation X, It's very 80s. There's references to like the Expendables in this, which was designed to make the people of the 80s happy. So, yeah, that's a thing. But, yeah, okay, I'm going to grant. Out of all the episodes I've seen of Universal Basic Guys, which is all 11 of them at this point, this is the one that I have to say I enjoyed the most. Anyway, just my opinion. Love to hear yours. Comments below. I'm Richard.
Ladies and gentlemen, I am Fred the Facehugger, and I'd like to point out that this world isn't a nice place. But you know who's trying to make it a nice place? The owner of this channel, yes. The owner of this channel does things like pay for ocean cleanup, and have trees planted, and even feed orphans in an orphanage in Mexico. Yes, it's a real thing, I'm not kidding. I may be a face-hugging alien from a horror movie, but I'm not a liar. Anyway, when you comment, like, and subscribe, you're supporting that better world, and whereas it may not make a big difference, it may be the difference between one more tree planted, one more pound of trash out of the ocean, or one child not going hungry tonight. So, think about it. Shouldn't you comment? Shouldn't you like? Shouldn't you subscribe? I certainly would if I were you. I'm Fred.